In this video, we're going to take a look at a pink ink by Pilot, their Mixable Pink. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the pink ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen. The extra fine actually has a couple of spots of shading that show up. So does the medium in terms of there's some lighter areas, but none in the stub. The extra fine's quite a bit lighter than the stub. The medium's only a little bit lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 13 seconds to dry and medium took 18. Scrubby for both give no color variation, although it is there a little bit, just enough really, in the writing. And a smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Hero 7035 with a fine nib was inked up, used for day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. We have no bleeding, but an incredible amount of ghosting that's going on for this pink ink, but it is a very thin paper. No feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade for the stub, no shade for the extra fine, but the medium is showing some shading even on this paper. Look at quicks, lighter to darker, browns, darker to lighter. It's very nice. Extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub, while the medium's a little lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 17 seconds to dry and the medium took 27. The scrubby for both give no color variation, although the medium does have some. And the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we really see this is a single dye. It is pushing its way up lighter to darker pink as it's gathering at the top. Now the one on the right that's allowed to dry for 10 minutes, it's really moving much slower. In fact, you see a little bit starting to form some of a line, but I'm not expecting it to really be permanent or resistant at all. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, but here's the thing. In the stub, we have some spots that are much darker coming through, and we even have a slight bit of ghosting going on in the extra fine and medium. Very interesting that it's getting this dark into the page. I don't see any of this stopping you from using the back of the page. Now we have no feather, spread, halo sheen. There is some shading in that, not in the stub, and a little bit occurs in the extra fine. You look at the darkness of quick compared to over, and the same thing happens here with the medium. The darkness of brown, you see it starts darker, gets slightly lighter, and then dark again. That darkness compared to the word fox, it's certainly darker, so there is some there. It just takes a little more effort to spot. Now the extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub, while the medium's the same tone as the stub. Extra fine took 10 seconds to dry. Excuse me. And the medium took 13 seconds to dry. Hopefully I'll remember to edit that out. The scrubby for both give us no color variation, and there is slight bits in the writing. The smear test, I don't think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles itself very well. There is a slight bit of some areas where you see more of the ink moving, but in the end, you can clearly read everything that's there, making you feel safe using it in a note-taking situation. Water is reactivating and lifting a lot of the ink, but not all of the ink. You still see it very pink. Now, pen flush, it does a lot more than the water, and you see a lot of the white of the paper coming through. 1/3 bleach solution, you still see some of the white of the paper coming through. It's a very small dot of that bleach down there, and in the upper left corner you see the white of the paper. But it did only take water to get this out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on Franklin Christoph paper. Generally speaking, this is a good quality paper. It typically doesn't have a lot of problems with fountain pen inks. All of these spots I'm circling, it didn't come through and touch the next page, but it is a lot of spotting showing that the ink got very deep into the page, perhaps being a little bit more aggressive. I don't know that this actually stops people from using it. The circles make it look much bigger than it is, but it's something to be aware of for the cost of this paper. We have no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine's a lot lighter than the stub. The medium's a little bit lighter than the stub. The extra fine took 1 second to dry while the medium took 2. Scrubby for both, show no color variation, and it's not in the writing. The extra fine, you can't smear it, but the medium you did. Very interesting how different that result was. For the inks tested, the average viscosity is 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Pilot's Mixable Pink has a viscosity of 1.52, so this is a wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity tests and all that's done, then down in the description, link to that video. Now let's take a look at Life paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shading in the stub, some shading in the extra fine, no shading in the medium. The extra fine's quite a bit lighter than the stub. Medium's just a hair lighter than the stub. The extra fine took 11 seconds to dry while medium took 17, and the scrubby for both, no color variation, though the extra fine does show it. And the smear test, you can't recover if you smear while you're writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Pilot's Mixable Pink has an average dry time of 16 seconds, so it's normal. The last writing sample is done on Levenger paper. Now we have no bleeding, but it gets very deep into the page in a few spots, showing that, it's a little bit more aggressive. Now, it did it in the stub, and it did it in the one spot in the medium. There's slight ghosting, but not too bad. I honestly don't see any of this stopping somebody from using the back of the page. None of it came anywhere near touching the next page. We have feathering in the stub. No feathering in the extra fine. We have tiny feathers in the medium. We have just look at that. It looks just slightly thicker. I'm going to call a slight bit of spread on the extra fine, quite a bit more spread in the medium. No halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than a stub, while the medium's the same tone. Extra fine took 2 seconds to dry, and the medium took 4. Scrubby for both show no color variation. It's not in the writing. And the smear test, you can recover if you smear while you're writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Pilot's Mixable Pink, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a turquoise ink by Private Reserve, their Daphne Blue. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Pilot's Mixable Pink? It's a serviceable start over. It's a serviceable pink. It's just okay. I don't see the usefulness of pink in mixing, and I can't see using many of the mixable inks outside of playing with the Pilot Parallel in some of those neat things that it does. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? I think to really show off the pink that's there, you need to be using a very dry, broad nib. This is going to help it be lighter, help it have a little bit more of its character that it can have. When using medium or wet pens, it really just looks like, yeah, you wrote in pink. Okay. With nothing special about it. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Platinum Green.